Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to another episode of Snipe, Celly. My name is Dan Bradley. Joel Fernino will be joining us here shortly. As I'm sure many of you have caught on to by now, that Chicago traffic can be a bear sometimes. So Joel is racing home and will be joining us shortly here. We do have a good show tonight, but there's some stuff that we have set up that I want to set aside and wait to pick his brain on. We're going to talk a little bit about the NHL All-Star Game festivities that are coming up just around the corner here. We're going to talk some NHL trade deadline happenings, as those are also going to be coming up here pretty quick. Fans may hear reports a lot more in the next couple of days and weeks about scouts being in the stands at games. A reminder not to put too much stock into that. Unless we're seeing, for example, scouts from the same team at 3 games in a row. Jesse with our first comment of the night. Sup, Dan? Sup, Jesse? How you doing, buddy? Looking forward to talking some Flyers hockey with Jesse here before too much longer. Flyers, I believe, in action tonight as well. They should be just about to puck drop here. Already underway as the Flyers are hosting the Anaheim Ducks tonight. A couple of teams there that are going to be in the mix for the Connor Bedard sweepstakes later in the year. And I think both teams will point to tonight's game as points that were earned or lost that were key in those standings towards the end of the year here. So some late-ish breaking news into the show tonight. Anthony Mantha is a healthy scratch for the Washington Capitals tonight. Looking in to try and see if there's some more details about what may have been the case there. All indications were that he was going to be ready to go for the Washington Capitals tonight against the Minnesota Wild. But we saw he was not on the ice in warmups with Nicolas Aube-Kubel and Lars Eller in, Nick Dowd out. So really some lineup shakeups there for the Washington Capitals. Things a bit different than what we are used to seeing. The lines really in the blender tonight for the Capitals as well. They've got Kuznetsov is playing on the 4th line. Backstrom and Wilson are playing on different lines than Ovechkin. Oshie is not on a line with any of those 3. So really interesting to see what is going to happen for Washington tonight. That game will, of course, be on in the background here as soon as tonight's show is over. Some other news that has kind of trickled down the pipeline today is word that Mark Stone is going through yet another back problem, which is really not good for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is a team that has already been really pressed for cap and trying to make the most use they can of their long-term injured reserve cap space. As of right now, they have just under $15.2 million of long-term injured reserve used. And of course, Mark Stone, his cap hit is $9.5 million. So you tack that on, you're talking, let's see, quick maths here, 24. It'll be just under $25 million in long-term injured reserve cap for a hit there, which not good at all for Vegas, a team that really has kind of flourished this season, which despite the injuries that team has already seen, despite being down, Shea Theodore is on injured reserve. They traded for Shea Weber to get some cap relief. Robin Lehner, of course, out since the beginning of the season, and he'll be out all year. Turning to goaltenders Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson to kind of run the show for Vegas, and still keeping pace in the Pacific Division. They are on top with 58 points, but of course Seattle and the Los Angeles Kings at 56 points, just 2 points back. The Pacific Division is going to be kind of wild all the way through to the end of things, because even Edmonton and Calgary are on 51 points. So they're 7 back with just about half a season to play here. So we'll see what that means for Vegas at the trade deadline. This could mean some more cap room. It could mean they take on a bigger contract down the stretch than what they otherwise might have. Vegas as well, though, not a team that has had a ton of prospects to move. Don't have a second round pick this year. They do have a first and 2 third-round picks. So we'll have to see what the severity of Stone's injury is. But of course, already having dealt with back problems early in his career, being 30 years old, it's not a great situation. And I think anytime that you're dealing with back problems as a professional athlete, that those tend to be the toughest injuries to work through and around. Knees will heal up, elbows, shoulders, whatever, but long-term concussions and anything to do with the back tend to have the biggest impact on the game overall. So really not good for Stone, hoping that he's all right and that things are less serious than what they seem right now, but really not a good situation at all out there in Vegas. Once again, Joel will be joining us here shortly, going to join us in progress tonight. One bit of Minnesota Wild news I want to talk about before Joel gets here, because, of course, have to get a little bit of Wild talk in. Matt Boldy signed to a 7-year, $49 million extension. I absolutely love this deal and this contract for Boldy. He's been at about a 0.78 points per game pace throughout his career so far, putting him right in track with what Trevor Zegras has been doing throughout his career, albeit with a little bit more talent around him than what Zegras has had to work with. And Boldy, of course, injured last season, did miss a big chunk of time, but I certainly believe would have been in the Calder sweepstakes at the end of things, in the running for the Calder Trophy to be the NHL's best rookie last season had he not been hurt. Boldy was a 12th overall pick for Minnesota in 2019. He played his college hockey at Boston College, has 39 points in 47 games last season, 12 goals and 17 assists this season for Minnesota. So he's fourth on the team in points. Really has kind of stepped up in a big way throughout this season. But of course, on the flip side of that coin, you've still got Wild fans out there who are thinking, well, another $900K and they might have been able to keep Kevin Fiala. That's nonsense. It's really just a bad faith argument. There was not a cap situation out there in which the Wild were going to be able to keep Kevin Fiala and keep the core of the roster intact. They really would have had to blow things up. They would not have been able to keep the grief line together, which Greenway, Eriksson, Ek, and Foligno have been one of the best defensive lines in the league over the last 2 seasons. And when that line is clicking and healthy and everyone is in the lineup, the Wild are able to just roll their lines effectively, and they're a very, very tough team to beat. But when any one of those 3 is out of the lineup, it really bogs things down across the board for the Wild. Boldy opens things up. HP chiming in Billy G, we trust. I 100% am on board with what Billy G has been doing in building this team. Cool enough, we got to meet him a couple weeks ago, HP. That was pretty great night. But that's we've talked about that story before here. But going back to the Boldy signing, Boldy hasn't played on a line with Kirill Kaprizov to any real significant degree so far. I think part of that has been, you look at last season where Ryan Hartman was such a natural fit on that line. Hartman has been out quite a bit this year with injuries. However, Boldy playing wing, you're going to be hard pressed to break up Kaprizov and Zuccarello. So unless those two are on the ice at the same time for the power play, which they have done a little bit this year, you're not going to see those two on the ice very often. So it is kind of going to be up to Boldy to drive his line. And I think especially once Marco Rossi is a full-time call-up for the Wild next season, I have every expectation that Rossi will be a full-time Minnesota Wild player next season and won't have to make the drive down I-35 down to Iowa and report to the AHL next year. Those two will be line mates that the Wild are going to lean on and really expect a lot from. but that they will be given those opportunities that they will be earning consistently on a night in and night out basis. Getting Boldy locked up for that term as well, for a 7-year deal. There was some consideration over whether or not there would be a bridge deal where it might be a 2, 3, 4-year type of deal and then signing him to the long-term deal. I'm really happy with this bit of work from Guerin here, especially knowing that through the next couple of years, as much as Wild fans are getting sick of it, the buyouts of the Parise and Suter contracts, it's going to be a bad hit over the next couple of years. But looking at how Boldy is already playing and looking at how he projects to play over the duration of that contract, I think we're going to be looking back in 2 to 3 years in particular and really going, wow, we're in good shape that the Wild didn't wait on getting a long-term deal done with Matt Boldy. I do believe that he's going to continue to progress and be a solid top 6 forward for this team. It is possible that when Matt Zuccarello is a little bit further down the line in his career, because Zuccarello is 35 right now, he's signed for 2 more years, there is a possibility that we see down the line Boldy and Kaprizov as line mates, possibly with Marco Rossi centering that line. HP asking how much longer do we have the buyouts on the books? So we have 3 more years, really, where it's this season plus 2 more where we're really feeling a crunch. But then there's another 1.6 mil in dead cap for another 3 years after that. So the contracts won't fully come off the books until the end of the 27-28 season. However, a 1.6 million cap hit for 25 through 28, not going to be nearly as big, but it's a 12.7 mil hit this year, and then 14.7 mil over each of the next 2 after that. So it's really going to be the squeeze to get through these next couple of seasons. But you look at the prospects that the Wild have coming up through the system and the job that Guerin and Judd Brackett have done to build up the Wild roster as a whole and really develop a strong farm system with consistent draft picks that have hit, getting good value in those draft picks, being able to, for example, last year in the Fiala trade, getting Brock Faber in return. Faber is going to be a steady part of the Wild lineup next season. And additionally, they got the 2nd first-round pick in last year's draft, allowing them to take Liam Ugrin along with now I'm blanking on his name. Yurov. Danilo Yurov. The Wild prospect pool is in good shape. So getting this long-term deal done with Boldy to work through the buyout years and the crunch of that, still have him sign long-term after that. Looking to a couple years down the road, the players that the Wild have under contract more than 2 seasons out right now are Kaprizov, Eric Sinek, and Boldy. That's it for the forwards that are signed beyond the end of the 2023-24 season. Defensively, Spurgeon, Brodin, Middleton, and John Merrill are all under contract through that span. So we do have a little bit more of that logjam defensively. We might see Guerin make some moves there this offseason. There's been talk about trading Matt Dumba. I would be very, very surprised to see a Matt Dumba trade this season. Part of that is because the contract for Dumba is up at the end of the year. Part of the reason is Dumba really has not played to the level that we know he's capable of this season. It's been a down year, both offensively and defensively for Matt Dumba. 4 goals, 7 assists in 42 games. Played in 57 games last season with 7 goals and 20 assists. The production just hasn't been there at either end of the ice to consistently rely on Dumba. And with his cap hit as well, being that that's a $6 million cap hit for this season, Dumba also has a modified no trade clause. So he does have 10 teams that he could shut down and say, nope, don't want to go play there. And knowing his cap situation, you can kind of do some of the math and guess that he would have predicted to not go to some of those teams that maybe have a little bit more room, would be able to take him on. I would be very surprised to see the Wild move Matt Dumba this season. I do think there will be an opening next season. I don't think that Dumba is back next year for Minnesota. And as much as I love Dumba, that it sucks, but he's probably going to be out the door. That does open up the pipeline for guys like Kalen Addison to continue to step forward in this offensive system defensively. It does allow for him to move into consistent top 4 minutes and really be the solid player that we know he is already showing that he can be. It opens the doors for guys like Carson Lambos and Ryan O'Rourke, some of these other younger guys who can be coming up and almost plug and play as well, giving them some more ice time and consistently at the NHL level. So really just an interesting situation there for Minnesota, but did want to touch on the Boldy deal as that is some relatively breaking news in the course of our show. Yeah, I don't know where Joel is at. I'm waiting for him to join. It sounds like he told me he was going to be here about 7:20. We haven't heard from him yet, so we're putting out an APB for Joel. So Joel, if you're watching, give us a comment. He has been known to do that as well sometimes while running late. He'll tune into the first few minutes of the show here. I guess we'll jump in with some of the trade talk that we wanted to cover here. And I'll stall a little bit here because one of the things I want to pick Joel's brain about is the situation for the Chicago Blackhawks with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. We've touched on that a little bit this year, but really wanted to commit some more time to that tonight. But let's start with the Arizona Coyotes. Will the Coyotes move Jacob Chychrun? He is at the top of the TSN trade bait board right now. An up-and-coming young defenseman, one of the more talented players who has come through the Coyotes ranks over the last few seasons. He's 24 years old. He does have 2 more years of team control after this season at a $4.6 million cap hit. The way that Chychrun has produced as well without having considerable talent around him, really, for lack of a better way of putting it, in Arizona this season. 5 goals, 17 assists. He's on 22 points. Already beat last season's point total through 47 games. He put up 18 goals just 2 seasons ago in 56 games during the 2020-21 season. So a ton of offensive upside, really a weapon and somebody that teams will look at long-term when trying to put together a trade package here. The return that Arizona has reportedly been asking for is quite steep. It sounds like they're asking for multiple first-round picks, including in this year's draft, which is going to be one of the deepest draft classes that we've seen in a very long time. In particular, if they can get towards the top 10, I would think of this year's draft class, if they can pull that off, is going to be something that they're going to try and look for in a Chychrun return. Looking at Arizona and their makeup as a whole, if they decide that they do not want to move Jacob Chychrun, and I would not blame them either way for this decision, looking at the core that Arizona is starting to build and put together here, they have hit on some very, very good draft picks in recent years. And looking at how they're going to be able to build around Logan Cooley and Connor Geekie, they have really set things up nicely for the future of that franchise. They still have Clayton Keller locked up for through the end of the 27-28 season as someone that they're going to build around as well. Dylan Guenther, should be mentioning him as well in the Coyotes talks of how they're going to build things here. But they don't have a ton of players who are under contract even for next year. A lot of guys on expiring deals, a lot of guys who are on restricted free agent deals. So they're going to have all sorts of wiggle room to play with here. Additionally, Joel's boy, Andrew Ladd, is going to be coming off the books at the end of this season. It's a $5.5 million cap hit that's been on injured reserve. So when that contract is up for Ladd, that will open up a ton of room. In fact, it looks like going into next offseason, the Coyotes will have just shy of $40 million in room to work with, and the salary cap of $83.5 million That's going to be a lot of wiggle room for them to work with. I personally do not think that the Coyotes will be moving Chychrun. Be really surprised to see that sort of a move be made. I understand the argument here for at least kicking the tires and sending out offers for Chychrun. Teams certainly looking for a guy with a ton of upside to see if that's somebody that could help their system. But I think now is just not the right time for Arizona to make the move, especially with what they are building towards. They've got the new arena coming as well. It would be a bit surprising to me to see Chychrun move now. I think he's somebody that you build around, not somebody that you move to help you build. So for me, I'm out on the Coyotes as moving Chychrun, but it is something that, given that he's at the top of a lot of trade talks, does really need to be considered there. A couple of other players in the mix with the Vancouver Canucks, who are really going through it this year. It looks like they're kind of trying to almost get Bruce Boudreau to quiet quit in a way, pushing him out the door. And we love Bruce Boudreau on this show. But it looks like the way that things are headed for Vancouver, there's going to be a lot of moving parts over the next few seasons. Bo Horvat, who is on an expiring deal this year, is another player who has really been talked about as a piece that Vancouver might try to move to kick off a rebuild and kind of officially say, yep, we really need to rework things here up on the island. So Horvat as a center should command a ton of interest in trade talks. HP, I'm going to get to this in just a minute. I know it's not possible, but would love to see Besser in Minnesota. I'm going to touch on that here in just a sec. And Horvat, I would also love to see Horvat in Minnesota. I think he would fit a big need for the Wild. I just don't see any way with the cap situation that they pull it off, and that they wouldn't move the prospects needed for just a rental. They would want Horvat as a long-term option. We should mention as well that despite how bad things are for the Vancouver Canucks this season, despite being near the bottom of the Pacific Division, 39 points this season, 18, 22, and 3, that Bo Horvat is still tied for 5th in the league in goals this season. So it certainly hasn't been his fault. Okay, we did hear from Joel. So Joel said, literally just got home. He'll be joining us here in just a sec. Back to Horvat here. I think there are a couple teams in particular who in the Eastern Conference could really use some depth, and if they can get creative with their cap situation, could bring in Bo Horvat. Speaking of bringing people in, we're going to bring in Joel right now. Joel, right on cue.
Yo!
The Chicago traffic, brutal.
Anyone from Chicago understands Lakeshore Drive is a little nuts. So, yeah, a little nuts. Hello. How goes it? How
it
goes life and things and such?
Life is good. Show is good. We've been doing a little bit of trade here. I'll go back.
Everybody. I've saved everybody from having to listen to Dan for the whole show. No, I'm joking.
I mean, no, thank you. You did save them from listening to me the whole show. So
technically, you did start 5 minutes sooner than you were supposed to.
That already set the show up. It was going to kick us off if we didn't start at 7:10.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure I said 7:15.
Well,
6:15. Oh God, I just betrayed Central Time.
You did. Oh, we got him. We got him. Clip it off. It's on the record now.
No.
Check the tape.
I am allowed. No, I would rather listen to Dan the whole show. Listen, HP, how'd the Vikings do this weekend? How'd they do?
How'd the Bears do this season?
We got the first overall pick. I'll take that.
Yeah, because you're bad.
Yeah, and you went 12-3. What'd that do?
I'm going to throw it back to the hockey talk here. I just went on my piece about Chychrun, but did you have any thoughts about the Coyotes moving Chychrun? Sorry to throw you
looking
right
into
in the
this.
middle of the
No.
draft
I want to be thrown right in. I was looking into. I mean, you had mentioned who we'd be kind of chatting about. Chikrin was one I didn't look too far into. I did a little. I mean, he was supposed to be moved last year, and then it just never happened.
Yeah, with the upside of a player of his caliber, especially getting him out of Arizona.
You're our contract guy. What's his contract situation look like?
Does have 2 more years of team control at 4.6 mil.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's on such a value contract right
now. That's a Brandon Hagel trade incoming. You're getting the Coyotes will get 2 first-round picks for that.
I think you're talking 3. If they actually get the deal done here, I think you could see 3.
Maybe. If somebody's really that desperate.
It depends who it is, and if it's a team that's maybe a player away. If you're talking about a potential perennial Cup winner with an opening window, if you're talking a team like Colorado, if you're talking like New Jersey, if you're talking like Boston, then yeah, I think 3 first-round picks probably is a reasonable ask in return.
I mean, will the Coyotes move? Like, yeah.
I said I don't think that they will, but I understand teams kicking the tires and the Coyotes saying we're expecting a very big deal for Chikrin.
My thing is if we could move Hagel last year at the trade deadline for what we got, I think if the Coyotes try hard enough and if somebody is desperate enough to get, even if he's a rental, like that's a damn good rental that you still have control over. Like I'm just to be different than you. I'm going to say he does get moved. It's also the Coyotes. I mean, they're still clearly rebuilding, but
do you have any thought where he might move?
Who's in like absolute desperate Edmonton? They need defense.
God.
They need defense.
God, Edmonton does need defense.
They need defense bad.
Oh,
and I've said it before. You can't expect to make a deep run in the playoffs. Okay, outside of last year, but McDavid willed them to the conference finals. So you can't expect to do that perennially. That's a word, right? I know perennial is a word. Perennially should also be a word. This has been your vocab lesson with Joel.
Joel. You need a sounder.
Yeah, you need a sounder for that. You can have me record it. I've said before, like you can't perennially take yourself deep like Edmonton wants to with your number 1 defenseman being Darnell Nurse. He's damn good. But you need another number 1. Right, you need 2 number 1s if you really want to keep fighting and keep trying to take that next step. I think Chikrin would be that kind of second number 1 for Edmonton. Would it put him over the hump to be like, oh my God, they could win the Stanley Cup? No,
I don't think so, because I think they do need. I mean, you touched on it with Nurse. Nurse is almost like having a 4th forward on the ice with what he brings offensively. In the defensive zone, though, it's just not quite there. You need a true stay-at-home shutdown.
What does that remind me of?
That Edmonton roster to really be ready to compete. And Chikrin, while good, is not that shutdown guy. He really is your get it done at both ends of the ice type of guy. So, but man, like I'm just picturing the idea of Edmonton being able to trot out, if they really want to and they're desperate for a goal, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nurse, and Chikrin on the ice, those 4 all at the same time. You can take your pick who you want for your 5th forward on that, or your 3rd forward, your 5th skater on that line.
Yeah.
But man, that's fun to watch.
Yeah, but that's all I got really on Chikrin. Who else we got in trade talks?
Bo Horvat and Brock Besser with the Vancouver Canucks, who are careening towards a rebuild, whether they want to be or not.
Even though the Canucks, their GM or their president literally has said, "I am very much against tanking." Did you read that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that their GM, right?
I think so. I think that's who it was.
I forgot.
But yeah, I understand being against tanking, but I think you also need a degree of realism where you say the way that this team is constructed right now, it's not set to be competitive and be a consistent playoff team, and you've got to do some work to make that happen.
I'm gonna incriminate my own team here. You know who else was against tanking and fully rebuilding? Stan
Stan
Bowman.
Bowman. Yeah.
That dumbass. And
Yeah.
look where we're at. Well, I trust in Kyle Davidson, but look where we've been at.
Yeah.
I
Not a great situation for the Canucks at all this year. 39 points, as we mentioned here. They are the fifth worst team in the Western Conference. And then when we expand it to the league overall,
we'll keep them out of the basement. Don't worry.
Seventh. So seventh worst team in the NHL. God, the Western Conference is so bad.
I mean,
they
okay. Dominated. They were the force to be reckoned with for the entire 2010s. So
the bottom 10 of the NHL does have 5 Eastern and 5 Western Conference teams, but the fact that all 5 of those Western Conference teams are in the bottom 7 speaks volumes about how bad the Western Conference is.
Plus, and I can tell you because I'm living this with 2 of my city's teams. I would much rather be in the basement than any of the teams that you didn't mention. So you said the bottom, the bottom of the league is it's split halfway, 5 and 5 East and West, fine. But the rest of it, that mid, the definition of mid is pretty much dominated by the Western Conference. And I still would rather be dead last in the basement because at least you have the chance to pick in the top 5 as opposed to being absolutely stuck in mediocrity and you're drafting 15th and that's not going to change.
Having seen the Minnesota Wild, who were kind of in that mid lock basically for a few years, where it was you get to the playoffs and it's a first round exit, and it didn't matter if they played Chicago, if they played St. Louis, if they played Dallas, it was a first round exit.
You did run into us 3 years in a row.
we did, but then there was also can't get by St. Louis. Couldn't. I don't remember the Dallas series, how that one worked out, but I think we lost one to Dallas.
Wasn't that Dallas was
the
year
we lost to Dallas, and then there was the Winnipeg series where Minnesota beat Winnipeg, but then lost in the second round.
And then that was the same, but that was also the same year that Dallas went to the finals too, so you didn't, right?
No, not that year.
It wasn't that year? Oh,
no, because then Dallas beat Minnesota, then lost to St. Louis.
Oh.
That was St. Louis's year.
Oh, okay. Got it.
If I remember right.
Yeah, no, that sounds right. Okay. Yeah. Back to your question. You probably don't have the sound bite. Joel's Toasty Takes.
You're right, I don't have the sound bites for that, but yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. You gotta get that. I can send you the MP4.
Yeah, please do. Our only sounder right now is appropriate for us not having any other sounders on the board.
Work for Joel's Toasty Takes, as will be my new little thing. If you follow me on Twitter. Toasty! See there, I'm my own soundboard.
There you
go. Toasty Take. Bo Horvat will be the first to go in or around the trade deadline, even before Kane, even before Taves, even before Besser, before Chicker. Bo Horvat is gone. I am calling my shot right now. Bo Horvat is gone.
Are you going to call where he lands?
I can't do it without looking. Like I could probably give you a second Toasty Take in a row and just call it randomly, but it would literally be throwing a dart blindfolded. But if I did have to do that, well, while I'm thinking about that, I gave my take on Horvat. What's your take on him? But also curious about Besser.
Yeah, I think Horvat is for sure gone, being on an expiring deal. A little tougher to move Besser, given that he does have a couple more years of team control. He's also had some injury history recently. Given the family situation as well, I would love for him to have gotten the chance to come home to Minnesota and be with family, or at least be closer to family.
You'd have to give up a lot for Besser.
We would, and I think the Wild, not only would they have to give up a lot for Besser, they'd have to give up almost too much to get Besser as well. knowing what that means for the future cap situation, knowing what the top 9 forward situation looks like in Minnesota right now. You've got Kaprizov and Zuccarello locked up on the wings for the next couple of years. You've got Foligno and Greenway on your wings, and then you just signed Boldy to a long-term deal. So right now, in your top 3 lines of forwards, you've got 5 of your 6 winger spots basically locked up. Do I think Besser would be a great get for Minnesota? Yes. Do I think that he on a line in particular with Matt Boldy would be fun to watch and provide a ton of offense? Yes. But with what that means for all of the ancillary movement, with what that means for how do you fit him under cap for the next couple of years, I just don't see a way that it's realistic. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't want it to happen if there was a way that they could make it work. I think Besser is more likely to be on the Canucks roster this time next year than to be moved this year.
Am I out of pocket saying that Besser is the better of the two?
I think so, just because with Bo Horvat, what he brings as a center. Also, Horvat is 5th in the league in goals right now, despite how bad things have been in Edmonton. He's
that's motivation. Yeah. He's trying to get out, probably.
Yeah, and he's playing his way into quite a return coming up for Vancouver. Not only that, but also the payday that he'll get with wherever he ends up getting traded. If he decides to sign a long-term deal there, that man is going to get paid.
I have a prediction.
Go ahead.
I had to think about it for a minute, but they're going to load up. They're already a juggernaut, but they're going to load up at the deadline and add Horvat, Carolina.
Ooh, I like it. I was wondering if that was.
I was thinking that as soon as you asked me, that was actually not lying. Within 5 seconds of you asking me, that was probably my top team I was going to say, but I wanted to kind of think about it, maybe take a look and see what teams might be in need of someone like Bo Horvat. But yeah, I mean, that's not even to say Carolina needs anything, but it's just that's a team that is on a tear. They're not going to go away anytime soon. They're going to be on this similar tear into the playoffs easily, and then they got to add someone to basically load their asses up and gear up.
I think there's a very interesting way that the Hurricanes could make it work, and they'd have to get a little bit creative with things here. But Horvat's cap hit is $5.5 million. Carolina has no cap room right now. They're already over the cap with reserve.
I assume.
But here's how you do it. You get Vancouver to retain 50% of the contract. You send Antti Raanta in that deal at $2 million, which gets you with about $1 million or so left to get there the rest of the way. But that also frees things up for Peter Kochetkov, who was tearing it up in Anderson's absence this year. Anta could be a cap move where he's out to create the dollars needed. And then from the rest of the way, you could move, say, Jesper Fast. You could move Paul Stastny, perhaps. It's a little tougher there because he has a no trade clause, so I guess probably not Stastny.
He's also like 86 years old, but
he's 37. But yeah, but that could be a move. Calvin DeHaan, who hasn't quite worked out, and then you include a pick and perhaps a prospect in there as well, and all of a sudden you're looking at a roster that's in pretty good shape. Not to mention if you move a defenseman on that deal. I'm not sure where things are at with Jake Gardner's injury status. He is on long-term injured reserve right now. But if he potentially is back in the lineup for the playoffs, that's about as good as another get.
I mean, per Sportsnet, I looked up some trade, just to see what's out there, what's a rumor or a guess. Listen to this one. I'm curious your thoughts. This isn't me going nuts. This is per Sportsnet Canada right now. potential trade here. The Hurricanes get Bo Horvat and Aiden McDonough, who is a prospect who is currently a senior at Northeastern University. And actually would become a free agent this summer too if he didn't sign with Vancouver. But anyway, Bo Horvat and then this prospect Aiden McDonough, and the Canucks get a third-round pick, Seth Jarvis, and Stefan Noesen, and Scott Morrow.
That's an interesting return. I am very high on Seth Jarvis.
Same.
I mean, kid's a very good hockey player.
That name popped off the screen for me when I saw that. I was like, I think the Canucks would take that.
I think so too. Jarvis was the 13th overall pick in the 2020 draft. Still kind of finding his footing at the NHL level, but showing that, hey, he is going to be the guy. And then Stefan, I think it's Nazen is how it's pronounced.
Yeah, I knew I was screwing that up.
I think it's Nazen. Does have 2 more years on his deal, but he's through his RFA rights, signed through next season. But that's not a particularly expensive deal. So I do think if you're moving Jarvis and Nazen, that's what you're going to have to do to get the money to work. Plus, you're going to have to throw in perhaps Ronta just to make the dollars add up, basically. But if Carolina is able to make that move and get Kochetkov back up, who, by the way, Kochetkov going to be the guy long-term for Carolina. It sure looks like it anyway. I definitely could see that. My thought on Horvat as a spot where he could end up, I've got 2 teams in mind that I think would be willing and able to go get him. One of them is the Dallas Stars. Keeps him in the Western Conference. I haven't looked too much into the cap situation to figure out, how do they make it work. But Dallas looking for somebody to really kind of put them over the top.
Not get shut out by the Ducks.
And oh my God, and not get shut out by the Ducks. Wrecked our perfect week on picks last time out. Couldn't believe it.
Wrecked my parlay that I was like, oh my God, I am on track right now. No, okay.
Yeah, so Dallas also doesn't have a ton of cap space.
Cap space aside.
Right. But looking at things for this season, I think if they were to add anybody, they're probably a little more likely to add a defenseman. But you go out and get a true bona fide scorer in Horvat, and looking at how they have built things up around Jason Robertson, around Rupe Hintz with the young core that they have in place in Dallas. Just one more piece to kind of go over the top. You get playoff Pavelski. I think that really opens things up as well. Plus, then you're not leaning on as many big minutes for Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn. So you kind of have those guys fresher and ready to roll as you're able to go through your lines there. My other thought is, and I would hate this so much if it happened, but it would really be interesting to see if it did. The Boston Bruins.
That is actually another name I saw pop out there, and actually that was another scenario that was on Sportsnet. Yeah. Okay. So I have another. Yeah, there was another article here. So
what did they put together as a trade package for to Boston?
So Bruins actually were the same as Carolina, which was it's Bo Horvat and the combo of him and Aiden McDonough, this prospect kid. And Vancouver potentially could receive Fabian Lysell, John Beecher, a first and a sixth, both this year.
Run that by me one more time. So Horvat and McDonough for
Horvat and McDonough for Fabian Lysell, right wing. Center John Beecher.
Yep.
I'm not
Makes
sure.
sense.
I'm not sure who John Beecher is. I know Fabian Lysell. And then
Lysell is going to be a freak in this league.
And then Boston's first rounder this year, as well as their sixth rounder this year. The first rounder is going to be, bottom 28 most likely. So I don't know what that really means to Vancouver minus, drafting.
It's another first round pick in a deep draft.
Yeah, front end of the draft, and then you're all the way back down. HP Spokesy would flip out if they move Lysell.
Yeah, that's his boy. That's our buddy Spokesy's boy, Lysell.
Yeah, you didn't Minnesotan this show up while I was gone, did you?
I did a little bit.
I saw a comment about something in Billy Guerin. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, in Billy G we trust. Yeah, we talked about the Boldy extension is what we did because I at least kept it news. I didn't just talk wild for the sake.
I'm here. Wild. It's okay.
It's something
Why don't you just say it? Say it. Throw that explicit tag on Spotify.
It's already there. Anytime you're on the show, there's an explicit tag.
What
on principle.
In the holy flipping heck do you mean?
Shiitake mushrooms.
Wow. Shiitake mushrooms are good. All right, who's next? What other trade rumors we got?
We're running a little tight on time here, so I want to move us on to Wednesday night picks.
Oh, what? There's no more. You didn't even talk about the two biggest.
You're right. I didn't. I didn't even bring up Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier.
Oh, get out of here!
Don't worry. I had Kane and Taves as ready to go as well. Maybe that'll be next week's show.
We might. Yeah.
We're going to have a few more weeks yet to talk trades.
Why don't we do multiple sets for each week for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah.
So next week we'll talk about. Here's a tease. Next week we'll talk about trade prospecting of Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier.
Yeah.
Kane and Taves will be talking about all season. But I had
San Jose wanting 3 firsts for Karlsson. If they get that, they absolutely pat themselves on the back.
3 years ago, sure.
Yeah, before all the injuries, yeah.
Yeah, and he's also, 30?
Good question.
Is he 32?
Give me 2 seconds here.
Maybe he's
Shout out to Cap Friendly for once again carrying the show as they regularly do. Yeah, Karlsson's 32. You're right.
Oh, I was not even looking that up. That was totally just a guess. Let's go.
So Joel and I both went to, we had all three of us, we picked the same on all 3 of our games on our last show, so we each went 2-1. Joel 64 and 54 overall. I'm back above 500 on the season. Was at 500 going into last week. So, Joel, let's dive right in here. Pittsburgh Penguins minus 130. Ottawa Senators plus 110.
We got 5 games this week, right?
We got 5. I got all 5 in the queue.
That's 5 I need to get back to 500 on the season. I'm going 5-0 this week.
Okay. Bold call. I like it. Let's see if he backs it up with the picks.
Penguins at Senators. This should be easy. Sadly, it's not.
Yeah, right?
Because the Senators are still crap, but they're just less of crap to still be able to beat teams like Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. This one's not easy at all to me, actually. I'm going to let you go first.
No. Very long injury report for Pittsburgh and some big names on that report as well. But potentially a lot of these guys coming back tomorrow or this week. Jeff Petrie, upper body injury. He will make the trip to Ottawa, so trending towards return. Chris Letang, who has absolutely been through it this year, had a stroke, had a leg injury.
And he came back.
And still back. I don't know how he's doing it. Guy's just a gladiator out there. But was at Tuesday's practice session in a non-contact jersey. And was officially listed on injured reserve. So could be back tomorrow, but I think they probably go another day or two just to. I mean, if he was in a non-contact jersey today, I have to think he's still got a couple more sessions of skating beforehand. But good that he's trending in the right direction. Tristan Jarry, who has been out with a lower body injury, also skated with teammates today and will travel with the team, so he might be there. It's a banged up Penguin squad. I don't have a whole lot of trust in Ottawa, but I look at how many injuries the Penguins have. I almost think Senators, just for being the home team in the matchup, I think I'm going to go Senators here, but I do not feel good picking against Pittsburgh in this one.
And I'm kind of with you here. It's kind of a coin flip. But you know what? My gut is telling me to go with Pittsburgh, so I'm going Pittsburgh.
Yeah, makes sense.
And my gut says I'm going to go 5-0, so.
Well, I'm very curious what your gut says on this one, because I think this is the game of the night. Boston Bruins -165 and New York Islanders +140. You talk about a couple of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. The Islanders slipping a little bit lately.
Yeah, hold on. Slow your roll on that one.
Let me back this up, though, to say one of the elite defensive units across the NHL, one of the top goaltenders in the NHL.
That's fine. I'm gonna talk you off that ledge a little bit.
Yeah,
the Islanders are sixth in the Metro, and Boston, just for the first time all season, lost in regulation at home last week. So let's hold off. All right.
But the Metro's good this year. And they may be sixth in the Metro. They would be fourth in the Atlantic. They would be fourth in the Central. Would still be sixth in the Pacific, but
all right. Yes, they would be fourth in the Atlantic, but they would be firmly pretty far behind Tampa Bay in the Atlantic too.
I mean, with that division schedule, though, they also aren't having to play, the Rangers, the Devils, the Hurricanes, the Caps, the Pens.
I'm not hating. I know they are a good team this year, even though if their record doesn't exactly show as
they're a better team than their record has shown.
I agree. I definitely agree. They're 13-7-2 at home, 10-11-2 on the road. So I can't bet against Boston. I just can't. Like, they are 13-4-1 on the road. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10, and they're Boston. Like, we've apologized ad nauseum for our beginning of the season predictions. It was mostly me, definitely, who had to apologize because I said they were going to be awful, and I was very wrong. I'm quite afraid they can win a cup. The only team that could really, to me, take them out legitimately and give them a good 7-game series is Carolina, really.
You mentioned that you cannot pick against the Boston Bruins, but in the words of Pierre Maguire, I can. I am going to go with the New York Islanders in this. Oh, you don't know that one?
No, I know it. I just didn't expect you to quote Pierre Maguire.
It was the chance to work in one of the dumbest quotes in hockey history into this show.
Hot Snipe Celly is officially canceled. I'm out.
It was one of the dumbest quotes in hockey history. If you're not familiar, go look that one up after the show. But basically,
reminds me of SpongeBob, and I helped.
Yeah, one of the biggest moments in World Juniors history, and Pierre just clomps on the call because the play-by-play broadcaster set it up with "Can you believe it?" And it was a moment where you pause and you let the roar of the crowd tell the story, and Pierre just jumps right in. I can, and here's why, and goes off into his bit. It's pretty cringy.
Shut up, Pierre.
Yeah.
I respect his career.
I'm going to go with the Islanders in this one. I think Sorokin steals one here.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's just.
I love that we're different so far.
Yeah. We're different on our first two. We'll see if we make that different on three. The Colorado Avalanche. Boy, are they going through it. Plus money on the road at the Calgary Flames. Colorado, by the way, despite being 3-6-1 in their last 10 and on a 2-game winning streak, they're still fourth in the
that's just
in the
how
Western Conference
absolute.
or
That's
in the
how.
Central.
Yeah, that shows you
But-
exactly how dog shit the Central is.
But if the playoffs started today, Colorado is out.
Yeah, rightfully so.
It's amazing to me.
They're going to get bounced in the first round anyway. And that's
Oh,
fine.
man.
There's nothing wrong with that. They're banged up with injury. They're hungover from a Stanley Cup. There's nothing wrong with that. I remember at the beginning of the season, I said they would repeat. About a month into the season, was like, never mind. I will make a prediction later on in the season.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely know more once we actually have the rosters finalized at the trade deadline.
Let's give ourselves a deadline. Let's give ourselves a deadline here. At the trade deadline, when we do a trade deadline show,
our first show after the deadline.
Yeah, exactly. And then that will be our deadline of, okay, pick a Stanley Cup winner.
Okay, that's fair.
Now, in the words of, in the breath of picking a regular winner right now, it's weird. I could really see Colorado winning this game.
Yeah, because Calgary, you never know what you're going to get with the Flames. 5-3-2 in their last 10, a +5 goal differential on the season. Calgary hasn't been the force that we thought that they might be.
They play well at home.
Especially you go out and you make the Tkachuk deal, so you go get Huberdeau. Then you sign Kadri in free agency. You kind of made your splashes, but haven't really lived up to what we thought the expectations were for this team going into this year.
Yeah. God, it's tough. It is very tough.
I'm not sure if this will make it easier or harder on you. I'm taking Calgary.
Look, from a betting perspective solely, I would probably hammer Colorado because you get Colorado at plus money. That's probably a decent deal for you.
Mm-hmm. There's certainly value there.
Absolutely. God, I'm already thinking that my gut is going to fail me on this 5-0 thing, but I'm going to go with the Avalanche.
Okay. So
and I feel like absolute shit about it, but this year has been one of the weirdest years in the NHL I think I have ever witnessed. So I'm just going to stick to the weirdness and go with the Avalanche.
Well, keeping things weird, Tampa Bay Lightning -1.5 goals at +135. At the Canucks +1.5 goals, -155. Joel, getting into puck line on this one, and puck line is always
a bitch.
A bit of it's a pain to try and bet with, but that's why there's the money to be had there as we handicap things a little bit. Vancouver 3-7-0 in their last 10. Tampa Bay 8-2-0 in its last 10.
4-game winning streak right now and a plus 30 goal differential.
Yeah. Any hope for Vancouver to keep this within 2?
No.
They are at home.
I don't care. No.
Yeah.
No Lightning are okay, so we're gonna be the same on this one.
Yep.
Like we were just talking about, they are the forefront of rebuilding, but they don't want to admit it type of thing. They're not tanking, but they're going to trade away their play. Tampa Bay,
I think there's too many off-ice distractions for Vancouver in this one.
Exactly. And I'm not saying it's going to be like a blowout type of -1.5, but probably one of those, potentially 3-2, 4-3, and then, the Lightning get an empty net goal with, a minute or so to spare.
There is no worse feeling than an empty net goal blowing your +1.5 cover.
I've actually been on the better. I've been on the better end of those.
Yeah, it's tough. And then our final game of the night, Dallas Stars also on the puck line, -1.5 goals, +155. At the San Jose Sharks, +1.5 goals at -180.
I mean, I would think Dallas, but apparently those West Coast teams have Dallas's number.
Yeah, again, doesn't make sense, as most things this season has been the case. The Sharks are 4-12-7 at home.
Abysmal.
That's just an absolutely brutal home record. The Stars 14-7-4 on the road. But when you make it plus 1.5, it just throws that wrench into things here.
If I had more than just one example, which being the Anaheim debacle for Dallas, I actually might pick the Sharks to cover. But after Dallas did get shut out, what was it, 4 or 5-0 by Anaheim?
Against Anaheim? Oh no, that was just 2-0.
Oh, it was just 2-0. Okay, so either way, they got shut
out. Still a very bad loss.
And yeah, you got shut out by the Ducks, who the only team worse than them are the Blackhawks.
Which, by the way, 3-point difference in the standings right now between the Ducks and Blackhawks. That one could come back to bite Anaheim at the end of the year.
Could.
With draft lottery odds.
Also, it'd be better if we didn't go on a random 3-game winning streak that we didn't need to do.
I am the biggest Blackhawks fan now through the end of the season.
And I'm the biggest anybody playing us fan.
I want the Hawks to win every game until they get to the playoffs, and then I want them to get swept.
You think we're going to make the playoffs?
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 Talk about playoffs?
I'm going to take the Stars. I think they can do it because my example there was, yes, they got shut out by Anaheim, and then 2 days later, they beat Florida 5-1. So it's probably just an anomaly. I did toss them on Fraud Watch as a result because it pissed me off, but I don't think they're frauds. I will pick Dallas.
Fraud Watch doesn't mean they're actual confirmed fraud. It just means watch out because they might be.
You're absolutely right. So I will take Dallas. If they screw me over again, then I might be a little pissed off.
Might really lean into that fraud. I'm with you here. So we're both going Dallas. We're both going Tampa Bay. Joel is going Colorado on the road. I'm going Calgary at home. Joel is going Boston on the road. I'm going the Islanders at home. Joel is going Pittsburgh on the road. I am going the Ottawa Senators at home.
So that 5-0 might be reversible as 0-5. We'll see.
It could be.
Based on how this season has gone.
I think one of us is going to go 2-3 and the other is going to go 3-2. I just feel like that's how it's going to work.
It's very nice of you.
I try to be nice when I can. 2 minutes for roughing. We're gonna fly through it. We're gonna fly through it. Joel, do you want to put the 2 minutes on the clock?
No.
Fastest 2 minutes in the history of the show.
Oh,
but not really.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
We're doing the count up. Okay,
my bad. No,
we can do it that way. No, keep it rolling.
No. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. The NHL has released their All-Star Game preliminary rosters, which are the players who make it in one player representing each team, and then they leave it up to a fan vote for the final spots. By the way, if you have not been voting, go out and vote. It's fun. It's easy. You can vote 10 times a day. NHL.com/All-Star, I think, is the URL there. But anyway, one of the dumbest things in sports, and this is the case in the NHL, it's the case in Major League Baseball, is having every team send a representative to the All-Star Game. I do not mean to discredit players because there are still talented players on bad teams, but some teams just don't deserve to send anybody to the All-Star Game this season. I look at, and I can't believe this is the first time I've made this joke all show. Seth Jones is an All-Star? Are you kidding me? This season, Seth Jones is an All-Star this season? Absolutely awful decision for him to be the guy. Would have made a ton more sense to have Patrick Kane, and then you go with a different defenseman, somebody like, I don't know, Roman Josi, Miro Heiskanen as better options. It's just the dumbest thing in sports that we consistently have. And I get it. I get it's an exhibition game. I get you want to see players from your team represented in the All-Star Game. I think there has to be a degree of earning the spot in the All-Star Game. I look at, for example, how this affected, because now Mikko Rantanen is subject to a fan vote, despite being one of the top 5 players in the league right now. It's ridiculous, frankly.
I definitely agree. Even though I support, the player, as Seth Jones, it made no sense. Like, if you're going to keep the rule of every team has to have somebody, if you're really going to keep doing that, let me just give you this. If we're just going to go off points alone on the Blackhawks, Max Domi is currently our leading point scorer with 30 points. So if you're going to do that, send him. And that's also, I told you, that's why I said in a text chain with you, I would send Domi. And you were like, what the hell? What's wrong with you?
You did say Domi. And I think the point I made is I still think Kane would be the one that they would send, despite how bad a year Kane is having.
Kane would absolutely go. He's only
if you're
2
talking
points
about
behind
who
Domi.
has the most meritorious claim to an all-star selection this season, I can agree with you that that's Domi.
Yeah, and actually, also, if you're not going to go with base and, Patrick Kane got injured and the injury was a little kind of unknown what it was when the All-Stars were getting announced and stuff. So maybe that had a
you
factor,
announce him there and you figure out replace him later.
Well, and he came back the other night and ended up scoring quite a bit. But here's the thing. Send Jonathan Taves. He's leading the league in faceoff percentage with a disgusting 64% at the faceoff dot. That's insane.
Yeah.
That is prime Jonathan Taves faceoff numbers. He's back. If you're going to – and he's 3rd on the team in points.
Yeah.
So, I just don't – it frustrated me too. I love Seth Jones as a person. The dude is an amazing human being. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. And damn right he's not an all-star this year. I don't understand where the hell that came from. I
thought it had to be a typo. I was looking at it expecting to see one of those NHL Twitter, like a Petrov McGuire type or something like that, where they, they pull a fast one. They make it look like it's all
April
real,
Fools in January.
Where they make it look like it's a real thing, and then it's a fake tweet. I was 100% expecting that, and I was like, no, this is actually the NHL tweeting this. Seth Jones is an all-star.
I don't understand. I really don't. I don't know where that came from. But I'm also with you. I don't like that every team gets it, because you're right. You need to earn it. You shouldn't be – we're getting into participation trophy talk right there.
Thank you. Mr. Booth, that's who I was looking for, is the one tweeting it. Yeah, that's who I was looking for. Waiting to see if we got Boothed or not.
I don't know, man. I couldn't tell you. And to be honest, I'm not going to watch the All-Star weekend anyway.
That's it for tonight's show. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and watched. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow on Twitter at PodSnipeCelly. You can find us on Facebook as well. Just search the name of the show there. We're back next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, 6 Central-ish, depending on Joel's traffic situation. We'll see what happens there. Maybe we need to just make our start time 7:15.
I think we should just make it 7:30. Oh God, 6:30.
Oh yes, that's twice. We got him. That's it for tonight's show. He's Joel. I'm Dan. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.